And welcome back. I hope everybody had a really fantastic summer. This is I nearly said August. What? Everybody's looking at me funny. No? This is the September meeting. Does it sound weird? Does it work better if I use somebody else's microphone or no? No? Yes? No? Cool. Welcome back to school. I hope you had a great summer. This is the September meeting of the Curriculum Committee of the Board. We've got two great presentations coming up. I wanted to just give us for anybody who's here or watching at home or watching this on, I guess it's not the replay, but the recording of this, sort of a little overview of what this committee does. So the Curriculum Committee is here to to hear about and review and ask questions and work towards really effective use of our curriculum, including new curricular endeavors, reviewing what we're doing in terms of assessment and behavioral issues. All of those are sort of bundled in here. We also approve textbooks and new courses in here. So we hear from a lot of our administrative folks and the people doing the sort of nitty-gritty in the weeds with the kids in their school buildings. So today we're going to hear two presentations, and first we're going to do just an overview of sort of what our district goals and focuses are for this school year, and then the other is going to be a presentation that we have, at least Sarah and I have long awaited in this because we had discussed doing this presentation in the spring, but really wanted to give it the focus it deserved because it's a really big topic. And I appreciate all of our folks that prepared this presentation and then were willing to work with us on the timing and are willing to come and talk to us about artificial intelligence this evening. So we are going to get started first with Mr. Weinstein first we're going to do a review of the, talk about the renewal for School Mint.
Thank you for the good introduction, Ms. Kalish. Glad to be back at CCOB for the first meeting of this school year. The first contract, or the only contract review, is School Mint Hero. That is for our 5 secondary schools. It is an attendance program that tracks attendance, produces late notes. It's spread out budget-wise. All 5 schools split the amount, which is $13,456.80, and renew it annually to help us track attendance accurately.
Do we have any questions from the board? Any questions in the chat or from the folks here in person? Did you have a question? Go ahead.
It came to me. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit about how something like this program works with PowerSchool and Link It, and if any of those applications happen in those programs as well.
Sure. It works with PowerSchool in the sense that what you would see in real time if you came in the morning, students that are late, they would line up, and when they swipe in, it allows, I don't know the full intricacies of the program and how the connection is software-wise. It just helps our attendance secretaries a tremendous amount spitting out tickets so they can bring them to class and sign in, those type of things. So it's more an efficiency-based product, and it also helps us with attendance. I can't speak to how they work. It doesn't really connect with Link It. We don't use it that way.
And it's not, this kind of functionality doesn't exist in PowerSchool? There is no attendance or tardy tracking in PowerSchool?
PowerSchool does that. It supports our central office people that are the attendance secretaries in the sign-ins in the morning and tracking that. So PowerSchool does keep the long-term data, though. That's where you would find it.
So why is School Mint Hero used then?
I can get back to you on the specifics. Seeing it in action when I was in in our schools, it supports the morning hecticness when people come in, and it helps produce the late passes, and it's just syncs with our PowerSchool, not Link It.
I was just curious about whether or not if it was redundant, and if we already have a program that does it.
No, I understand the nature of the question.
PowerSchool doesn't spit out passes, so it's like a kiosk system that spits out the passes. That spits out passes when the kids are late.
So it's not doing any of the tracking itself, right?
PowerSchool does all that.
PowerSchool does all that. Okay, great. Do we have everybody, wait, okay, who is actually on this committee? 1, 2, 3. Kimberly is our fourth, but she's not here, but we still have quorum, the three of us. How do we feel about moving this how do we feel about moving this forward? You good? You good? Okay,
We do have a question in the
Okay, go ahead.
chat from Jill Altschuler. I believe she's in Marion. Can you please explain how a contract renewal for a school-wide tardy tracking software is relevant for a curriculum committee meeting?
It is a contract renewal for student services, I believe. Is that the umbrella that it would be under? And those are, am I screwing this up? I'll let one of you answer this.
The budget comes out of our school budgets. It's divided by 5, and each of our schools take it in their budget for it annually.
Okay, so I think it's just things that need to come for board approval that aren't physically part of maintaining the facilities and the building, as those would go to facilities and purchasing, and all the other contracts and renewals would end up in this committee, correct? Did I explain that fully? I hope that is sufficient for you, Ms. Altschuler. I too am good moving this forward. And we will see that on the next business board meeting agenda. And then we can move on now to our brief overview of our focus for this school year.
Sounds good. So the first presentation tonight is largely about our district focus areas and what we thought, work with the committee chairs and thinking about the timeliness of what to present. Over the summer, our administrators meet in June. We have 2 days at the end of the school year, and in August before our NTAP, when our new teachers come, we have 2 what we call leadership days with our academic council. Our academic council are all the academic administrators in our district. Think curriculum supervisors, and while I say that, I want to thank them for joining us tonight, our curriculum team, assistant principals, special education supervisors, student services. So we meet monthly throughout the year, and at the end of June, and like I said, in August before NTAP, we calibrate and make sure we have district focus and vision and make sure we move forward in an aligned way. So we thought it would be a good idea to transparently talk briefly and give an overview of what we talk about in those meetings, kind of peeling back the curtain about things that we care about, that we're focused on. And so I'd like to present that to you. And one of the things we start a lot of our meetings with, it's always important to me, is as the world is a noisy place and sometimes challenging and difficult place, there's also much to be grateful for. So we start a lot of our meetings with that, and I'm grateful to be in a place, in a district that supports public education, so I thank you for your role in that. I also am excited to, and I'm grateful to introduce, as part of our curriculum team, Dr. Robert Schwartz, who joins us tonight. If you can stand up, Robert, thank you. And Dr. Schwartz is an alumnus of Lower Merion High School. He held the similar position, almost exact position at Upper Darby School District, where he has worked his entire professional career. He's also been a classroom teacher for 12 years. He is now our supervisor of curriculum and instruction for K-12 mathematics. He's led district-wide efforts. What was important to our teachers is that he's led a lot of PD, and he's really skilled and talented in that area. And he cares a lot about advocating for equity in mathematics education. That really shined through in the interview process. That process, we brought stakeholders from every grade level, and we had about 16 people on our committee, and he, I believe, unanimously came through in a really talented pool of people. So we're excited to have Dr. Schwartz with us. I can tell you in his 16th day in the district, he has met with all of the key math groups. He's met with our elementary math specialists, appeared at all of our schools, our middle school content leads, math specialists, our high school department chairs. He's made himself available to meet with everyone. They're running an elementary pilot, which you'll hear throughout the year. He has already been engaged with that and working with our companies that we're doing the pilot with. So it's been a really impressive start, and we're really glad to have you on the team. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity for you to meet Dr. Schwartz. Thank you. And as I start to go into our focus areas, something that is foundational to us is, this is straight from our website, is building belong. We know that before students can learn academically, they have to feel safe and supported in an inclusive learning environment. So I leave this slide up to say this is a value of ours that we hold true, that comes through in, I hope, everything that we do. Our core commitments every year, and I'll tell you a little bit why we do this, is the world of education. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of, for lack of a better way of saying it, noise, and there's a lot of things that are really great. If you chase all of them, you're not really chasing any. And one of the things that frustrates teachers, building level administrators, supervisors, or anybody in education is not having a focus. What are we looking into? What are we specifically focused on? Of course, the school day never stops. Students' needs never stop. But in terms of direction that we're moving, sometimes it's helpful to organize people's brains in what we're thinking about. So every year we think about the academic learning, the things you think about with school. We're committed to ensuring that students learn. To do that, we know we need to commit to social emotional growth of our students as they're growing up in our districts and spending as many wake hours with us as they do at home, and their social emotional development is so strong. And to do that, we need to think about our professional learning and be an organization, a school district that is constantly evolving and growing. So that's the big bucket commitments that we make, and what we put in those buckets may change annually, but has remained pretty consistent, and I'm going to go over those now. So if we start with professional learning, we want to make sure we create a culture for learning in all of our schools. An example of that is we often think of professional learning are those days that when students are home and teachers only come in, we call them PD days or professional learning days. If that is the only time that teachers and our organization is learning, then we're not doing it right. Learning should be embedded in everything that we do. Quality professional development is collaborative, sustained, and job embedded. So we don't wait for October 31st, November 4th, the day before President's Week holiday. They are key high impact times where we can focus solely on that. That is not the only time that we're learning. To develop the focus areas in buckets 1 and 2, which I'm about to show you, we need to grow ourselves to do that well. So when we think about our academic learning, here are things that we are focused on, and they are all systems related. And I'll go over that. So tier 1 practices, when I say tier 1, and I'm going to give a really large overview on this, and what I envision throughout the school year in CCOB is we kind of go a little bit deeper on what they mean individually in those sessions, but not right now. So this is a broad overview, but quickly, tier 1 practices are, that's the instruction that all students get. So think about the classroom that all students are present for. That's tier 1, and we want all students to learn in tier 1. We know some students need a little bit additional and more, and that's where tier 2 and tier 3 come in. Universal design for learning is, it actually started in architecture when curb cuts, ramps, and automatic doors. The idea that you design access from the start instead of using accommodations later. And I'll pause and let you read this comic that shares what UDL is about. So the ramp works for everyone. So when you design learning for some, it could be accessible to all. So we really want to focus on having everybody access our learning. Differentiated instruction was talked about for years. That's still a thing. And universal design for learning is doing it on the front end, designing with learning outcomes intended. Here it is briefly. It's a framework for instructional design. It has 3 overarching principles. One is design multiple means of engagement, and look at that as the why. Designing multiple means of representation, you can think about that as the what. And designing multiple means of action and expression, which is like the how. There are 9 guidelines. There are checkpoints for each of those guidelines. This comes from CAS. This is version 3.0. This isn't a Lower Merion specific thing. This is widely accepted in the field of education and something we believe in and learning more about. Last year, we kind of did our 1.0 version where each building was exposed to it. And this year, we have a plan to go a little bit deeper and start scaling that work and making sure teachers are using this to plan. Next is the next 2 systems of support are PLCs and MTSS. I'll pause and let you read this. And Milbury McLaughlin is a senior professor at Stanford who focuses on research and education, mainly in the K-12 space. We know that doing professional learning communities well is really important. When we say professional learning communities, this is what we mean. What that looks like in practice is I'll go to the middle school level randomly. I'll pick 7th grade English, and we may have in middle school 3 7th grade English teachers across the 7th grade in 3 different teams. The way I like to describe it is if I had triplets and I sent them to those 3 different classrooms, they should not have 3 very different experiences. How do we make sure they have a guaranteed and viable curriculum that aligns with state standards and is what 7th grade students should be learning in English? It doesn't prescribe exactly how to do it. It just makes sure that we assess. We use common assessments to make sure we're going to the same place. And PLCs are data-based. We commonly assess. We use that data and work with it. And I'll show you what the 4 questions that we ask in a moment. This year, thank you for approving Peter Noonan from Solution Tree. He came to us in 2013, was outstanding, and has provided consultation. Our staff has turned over a great deal since 2013, 12 years ago. It's still a practice we greatly believe in. Our teachers buy into a high level. So Peter will be with us 5 times throughout the year. In every building we'll have representation, including our curriculum supervisors, to ground ourselves in what it means to be a high functioning professional learning community. If we do that well, the theory of action is more students will learn. Here's the 4 questions. I'll let you take them in for a second. What I want you to think about with these questions: what do we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know if each student has learned that? If students respond and they don't learn it, what are we going to do? Can we identify them, and how are we going to meet their needs? Sometimes students already know it before we start, and how are we going to meet their needs? In a district like Lower Merion, that sometimes is a pretty large percentage of people, so we don't forget that either. What I like about those 4 questions, if you asked them 30 years ago in education, absolutely relevant, and I would guarantee that if you asked them 30 years from now, they'd be the same 4 questions we should continue to ask. So that's what PLCs are. What we do with those 4 questions and how we work systematically in teams is the growth that we're seeking. MTSS, you heard about through the years, it's making sure we account for the whole child, academic, behavior, and social emotional. A lot of systems in place to do that, to make sure we're giving resources in an equitable way across our buildings and within buildings. So you'll hear with that throughout the school year. In next, social emotional learning, we speak about, these are some of the things that we talk about: belonging, safety, and school culture, positive behavior supports. What I like about this that I'd like you to take note of is things that happen in policy that we're working on with special education. We collaborate across departments, across areas in our school district, from Megan, who works with policy. As a matter of fact, today you're going to hear a connection with artificial intelligence. Certainly with special education, we spend a lot of time with community involvement on policy 236. So when we're doing professional learning throughout the year, what you see in that policy that we share is embedded in our professional learning plan, and it shows up, and we're in sync with that. So I'd love the community to know that. That's something we're really thoughtful about, and we spend a lot of time in the beginning of the year thinking, where is that going to live? How are we going to meet those needs? And then restorative practices and responsive classroom, which is mainly proactive supports to build communities in our classroom. And lastly, there's a lot of guidance. I just referenced policy. Megan is usually the point person and certainly we all work collaboratively with Kimberly Frazier of making sure these things that we talk about in curriculum are grounded in practice, that we're communicating every year the annual policies, so we work in a professional and sustained manner to give the best product for students in our community. And those are the things that we talk about when we prepare for the school year, throughout the year, that we'll check in. Certainly in a lot more nuanced way than the broad overview that I showed you, but I wanted you to see these are the things we're talking about when you're not always with us, the things that we care deeply about. And again, the theory of action is if we do those things well, I'll name PLCs, UDL, MTSS, you do those 3 things really well, which is our aim to continue to improve in those areas, you're going to have a high-functioning school district and students are going to learn at a higher level. And that's our theory of action and what we commit to. And I thank you for listening to that.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Do we have any follow-up questions or commentary? Ms. Garrison?
Thank you for the presentation. Actually, my question, I was curious, I wanted to address it to Dr. Schwartz. I'm curious, what does equity in mathematics look like in practice?
And just so you know, Dr. Schwartz, when you're answering and you're not a podium person, you come right on up to here and you press one of those microphones. Otherwise, the recording can't hear you, so.
And this is your real welcome to Lower Merion, so.
Is it that button? There we go. Yeah. Nice to meet everyone. And thank you for having me. Dr. Watson, thanks for the introduction. You asked a question about what does equity in mathematics look like, and really, in mathematics, it's about making sure that every student feels welcome in the classroom, that they come into the classroom and feel like this is a place that is, them to learn. Math is really unique in that, when you ask people, when I tell people what I do, and I tell them that I'm a math teacher, I'm a math supervisor, immediately it's, I hated math, I didn't like math, math is the boring one, I really struggled with it. So equity in mathematics ensures that when our students come into the classroom that they feel that, that they are welcome here, that it doesn't feel when they come in too mathy and they're turned off, that it feels that, whatever skill level you're bringing to the table, that there's a spot for you here. And if your math skills aren't strong, if you don't know your multiplication tables perfectly, there's a spot for you here. If you have an accent, if you have a history, if you have a learning issue, that you feel welcome, cared for, supported, and that you feel like you belong in the mathematics classroom.
Thank you. And besides belonging, which of course is extraordinarily important.
Sure.
I'll just use one of the things that you mentioned, multiplication.
Sure.
So if you have a student, let's just say they are in 8th grade, but they do not know their multiplication table, so they're going to really struggle mightily once they get to algebra.
Sure.
What would you do with that student?
I think the most important thing to do with students who struggle is, to figure out, why they struggle. I think the first thing, even on the other side, I think you really need to make sure that you don't conflate right answers with incomplete understanding, and you make sure that you don't misunderstand incorrect answers with, what is smart and what is correct about that wrong answer. So it starts really with our classroom teachers being skilled enough to recognize what is deep understanding in mathematics, what are the skills that they need to have, and not be confused with, can you borrow, can you carry the one, that there's a level of math understanding, a reasoning, a sense making, an estimation, that those are the things the teachers need to be thinking about to make sure that that students who struggle, continue to, advance and raise their floor.
And what's nice about the PLC model is when that happens in 3rd grade, there's a whole team of support, a math specialist that comes in, and that's what the PLCs bring together as teachers support each other in that work.
And as Dr. Weinstein discussed, that that MTSS model, that tier 1 and tier 2 piece, right? So it's figuring out, okay, if there's a gap, in tier 1 and they're not gaining from that tier 1 instruction, what are the supports we have in place to to fill in those gaps, to raise their floor so that they fit? And really, that's what the UDL piece, that's what the the PLC process to come through, and that they can that we have supports in place, to make sure that every student gets the things that they need. I think the other thing that that is an interesting piece in terms of equity, specifically here in Lower Merion and in my past work in Upper Darby, is I do think people have a hard time recognizing intelligence when it doesn't look and sound exactly as the way they expect it to. So I think that that's a really important piece for our teachers to recognize that not all learning and not all skill set and not all knowledge comes packaged the way you might expect it to.
Just one more.
Please.
Let's say the student does not come from Lower Merion, that they're coming into the district from another district and they may not have had those skills. How would we make sure that kid gets what they need if they missed it in 3rd grade or 4th grade?
And I think that's why we have a couple pieces in place. Having a strong diagnostic so that we can recognize where students are when they come into our classrooms, and then having that tier 2 support, whether that's through our elementary math specialists, through the algebra and the learning labs at the high school level. I can't remember names of things at the different levels are different.
The
the intervention and enrichment period at the middle school level, that we have to, target what those deficits are and address them, because, otherwise you're just building, faulty house of cards on, top of quicksand. But I do believe that raising the floor for all students raises everyone's ceiling as well.
Good answer.
Sure.
And just while we have you here, I know we've discussed this, and this isn't a question, and it's something I know that we've talked about in the past, and I just wanted to carry it forward because you're a new friendly face here, that I know there's been lots of efforts made in recent years, and we've had progress, having more female and gender expansive students and more students of color in our advanced math courses, and that encouraging that, supporting that, and keeping track of that over the years, and what sort of is successful for us in leading to expanding access for these previously underrepresented groups in our advanced courses has been a real focus. And I just ask you to please continue the charge, because that is something I know that is important to me and many of my colleagues here. Do we have anybody else that wanted to comment on this? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I actually don't have a question for you specifically, but welcome. But I have a question about how.
You have to go back before they call
You're
me.
welcome to stay. Yeah, sorry. I'm curious how as you said, this isn't a large overview, sort of a
Sure.
high level. How we are assessing, how you're assessing the impact and efficacy of something like UDL and its implementation. And I'm just curious how we'll know when when it's working.
Yeah, and I think it's actually the time of year also where we do our, I don't love this answer, but it's kind of the accountability answer of what you're saying a little bit, but we work on we call them goal setting, but it's part of the evaluation process. So things that we believe in, we work on with principals that they bring back to their buildings, and so it's part of the teacher goal setting plans. They will make sure there's accountability for teachers for implementing things like UDL. So a lot of these things, we wouldn't adopt it or we wouldn't focus on it if it wasn't research-based, and other people didn't do that for us already. So a lot of these things bear out in research that happen in other places, but certainly we will be able to track, for example, year to year, teachers have similar assessments, and they'll be able to have comparative groups, maybe not with the same cohort, but with previous cohorts to see if those things work. But we adopt things that are research-based as opposed to doing the research here, but that'll happen through our assessment practices that teachers compare to previous years. Good question.
Thank you. Yeah, because I know about UDL, I know about universal design from my personal life or my professional life, whatever you want to call it, occupational therapy. And one of the sort of challenges that happens with something like universal design is that it can be somewhat hard to implement and hard to sort of standardize. So that's why I was curious how we're doing that. So I appreciate that answer, and I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Yeah, and it's a framework, so it's not a specific thing. It's being able to look at everything that you do of, what barriers may be there, and how can we plan for that before they happen. And when we're thinking about that on the front end as opposed to the back end, it usually will serve us well.
Dr. Saltner?
And I'll be really brief. I just wanted to say I really appreciate you connecting it to the values and the practices. So to start off the September meeting, well done, co-chairs as well, with this kind of big overview, and then pulling that thread through about how we're gonna kind of bring it back up. Because as we know, not everybody comes to every curriculum meeting. So it's really helpful to start with that broad scope and then pull it through and show how that the work of UDL is multiple years and through multiple systems. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that, connecting the dots, because watching it from this side, kind of coming into existence in Lower Merion and then starting to be fully implemented in years has been really helpful to see and to move forward. And there's a lot of research that shows how to measure it as well. So I know you're using that research base as well. I also just want to say, really appreciate the math comment about how do we really know what SMART looks like. Because SMART comes in a lot of different ways, and that's the best thing, because it starts with high expectations for all kids and seeing how brilliant they are, and then lining it up with the skills that they need to be successful in that math class. So I appreciate both of those things. And it was a really fast presentation, so kudos to kick off the new year.
And SMART coming in a lot of ways is UDL type language. And I'm remiss in not saying, as much as I really enjoy presenting and like being in front of you, sincerely, when we do subsequent presentations of UDL, I do want to give it to the people that are doing a lot of the work. When we have special education at Gwen Nardowitz, at Dory Martin-Batone, at Drew Gingrich, Stephanie Doyle, these are people that are collaborating across special education, regular education, and going to buildings and leading that work. And it's really been a team effort of different levels of administrators in different areas and teacher leaders that are spreading that word. And that's been really important to us, because if you want something to scale, you want to get belief in a lot of areas, and having that work scale from people that are doing the work that are respecting the district, like the people I just named.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mel.
Thanks. Agree with everybody else how wonderful this presentation was. I liked what you talked about the setting goals and accountability for the teachers to ensure they actually are practicing this in the classroom. And is this also being done with more like assistance and that with goal setting as well?
The teachers with goal setting, did you ask?
With the goal setting, but also other, like the assistants and everybody who's supporting in the classrooms are also doing goal setting and collaboratively working together.
As part of the state public school system that we're in, all of us, all of the principals, assistant principals, teachers have evaluation, and some of those, there's guidelines that we follow, and then we can individualize based on our district focus areas. So for example, UDL wouldn't be in a state evaluation plan, but we would customize that and make it part of ours, because it's what we believe in, that we want to hold accountability to.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? I don't know if I did or not. I didn't hear one part of it.
And you answered my question.
Okay.
I just want to know everybody is getting this goal setting, that we know that everybody's practicing it, and so the kids will it'll benefit the kids in the long run.
And to piggyback on it, our teaching assistants are folks that are providing support roles in classrooms, but aren't our teachers necessarily. Are they also being included in these PDs where they're getting trains, aides?
As far as the professional learning, yes, they have a different evaluation metric.
But they're
yes.
getting this instructional base, so everybody has the same basis of knowledge and is coming at this problem with all these different hands and brains to work on them.
Correct. And
Fantastic.
The first 4 days, so students came back September 2nd after Labor Day, and the week before that, Monday through Thursday, all of our professional staff and our instructional aides who work with students have been in. So there's a lot of professional learning that happens during those 4 days, and they're included in all of that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is that everybody who had a comment? Yes. Okay. Sarah had one. Go ahead. I apologize. I couldn't see you past Frank. I need my X-ray goggles tonight.
Sorry. One quick question, which is, how long have we been implementing PLCs for? Do you know?
PLCs have been around, about 2013 is the first time that we brought a consultant in. We went out, before COVID, we went to conferences, so we would have teacher leaders, it was more common, I should say, going to PLC summits, where led by Rick Dufour, who was kind of like invented PLCs, and we went to different areas, and there was a lot of early buy-in. We actually used to have school districts visit us to look at our PLC models. One of the things I like to share a lot is we had teacher leaders who would present to other schools as they come watch what we do with PLCs. And one of the teachers said when this first started, to answer your question, around 2013, people don't love new things right away. It's like the nature of like your change. What are we doing and why are we doing it? And they said that was the initial reaction. But now if you tried to take it from us, there would be a battle that you would have. So teachers really learned how to rely on that. And one of the things I say frequently, I talked about NTAP that week before all teachers get back, new teachers. It is really great that if you're a new teacher that comes to a district and you join that 7th grade English PLC, that you're not on your own and everyone shuts the door and starts, but you're with 2 outstanding teachers that have been with the district for 17 and 6 years, that know the curriculum really well, that are welcoming you in. So it's what I would call an atomic habit, that it's not just a guaranteed and viable curriculum, but so many other things are embedded in that. But 2013 to be way more simple in answering your question.
Sure. And then just want to point out to the community, if you're interested in learning more about PLCs, we did have a very in-depth presentation at our December 2nd 2024, so last December's curriculum committee meeting, and that's still up and posted, so you can view that presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
We have lots of great presentations. You should always go back and buff up on your topics before you come to CCOB. Got to do your homework. Do we have any in-person or chat comments?
Shannon, can I just make one?
Absolutely, you may.
I'm not really on the committee, but, no, so, we've heard about PLCs at, different times over the past couple of years. So it was great to see it all sort of put together in a holistic sort of vision. And as you say, many of these things are timeless. They were good 30 years ago. They'll be good 30 years from now. Things like holistic assessment, continuing, ongoing, effective professional development. So I think these themes are going to resurface again in revisiting the strategic plan, because the strategic plan actually has those exact things, professional development. And I always thought our strategic plan is pretty timeless for the same reasons we just articulated. However, the criticism of it, fair, is like, how do you reduce these things to practice, which I think is what Abby was getting at a little bit too, and that is the challenge. So we'll look forward to building that, I think, into the strategic plan as we go forward.
So thank you for bringing that up. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Weinstein, his curriculum team, Megan Schaefer as well. And the reason I say that is because, since I've been here, we do so many great things, and there's so much intentionality and thought behind everything on how we're going to take, these theories and make them usable for teachers to practice. So I just want to make sure I thank you very much for not only for the presentation, but for really triangulating everything, your team, the whole 9 yards. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate it. So
Thank you very much.
with the strategic plan, so if you notice the wording, right, on the presentation and what these goals, quote unquote, are, it's really the district focus. We had a lot of discussion over the summer about district goals, and I did not feel comfortable setting district goals to present to you, to recommend for you all to approve without having a current strategic plan. So these things that are on the focus, district focus, are, you could call them timeless, right? You could call them a lot of things, but it's a continuation of everything that we're doing. Right? And some of the buildings are at different areas than others with all of these things. And we want to continue to become experts in these things because we know they're good practice and they're backed by research and things like that. And then when we do our strategic plan this year, we'll look toward district goals that we could solidify for each of the coming years of the 5-year strategic plan embedded in them. And that'll drive the school goals as well, which will drive the teacher goals and things like that. So it'll be one big continuous document that understands that. But yeah, overarching strategic goals align very nicely in here.
Thank you very much. Everybody has said their piece? Yes? Okay. Do we have any, Jen, come on up. And are there, no community, okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much for that great overview on the district's focus. Just 3 quick comments.
Sorry, 1 second. Could you say
so sorry.
Your name and where you live?
Jen Rivera, Balakinwood. Jennifer Rivera, okay. Just real quick, I'm happy to hear that the district is committed to ensuring that students learn and is committed to how we respond when some students do not learn. But I do want to encourage Dr. Ranelli, administration and the board, as you work with CCIU on the strategic plan, to really address the opportunity disparities. Some like to call it achievement gap. I don't like to refer to it as a gap. Our children should not feel like they fall into a gap. I really want to hear more of that. I really want to hear how these goals, what's going on curriculum, really addresses the main concern that the community, now it's out there, I mean, several counties know the concern of Lower Merion when it comes to our academic disparities in this school district. And I am very concerned, as well as a number of community members and leaders I have met with over this past week. My second comment is, I was at the December 2nd, 2024 meeting. I did my homework, but I do not remember seeing in great detail presented what I like to refer as key performance indicators. I heard it was evaluation metrics. I would like to see that as a parent, and I'm sure community members will too, broken down by tier, the measurable outcomes. How do we really know these PCLs are working, all teachers are being held accountable? From what are the evaluation metrics for the teachers, the aides by elementary, middle, and high school? And what is the level of accountability? Because as a parent, it was alarming and concerning. I mean, parents talk, when we compare our child's experiences in classrooms, this child, went on at this level in reading, while another child is this, and a parent goes, well, my child was learning this way in this class. Oh, my child wasn't. So I just would like to hear more about the level of accountability, the performance plans quarterly, the measurable outcomes and key performance metrics and everything that tie in with PLCs. And then my last comment is I would love, as a parent and community member, to see the trainings, the professional developments that our staff is receiving quarterly or whenever these days are. I know some might be specific to their, math or something, but in general, what are they learning? Safe environments, how to, create inclusive environments. I would love to see a calendar broken down of all approved professional development topics as well, and I'm sure, I'm not just speaking for myself, but this is a lot what parents and community members have expressed. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the your first point. You had couched our work with the CCIU as something that we could bring up, right? Make sure we identify the disparities between the achievement, right?
Well, yeah. So I think this should be included in the strategic plan, because this is a core commitment, committed to ensuring that students learn, and how will they respond when they don't learn.
Yep, no question. So I really want to talk to you about process, because this is perfect for the public to hear who's here, who can see this later on or is at home. The strategic plan is driven by the community. So what'll happen, and you'll receive information later in the week about dates throughout the year, things like that. But what'll happen is the CCIU will really look to the community to drive what's important in these buckets. It won't come from us. We'll be community members at a table separate with all you also. Please encourage people to come to the meetings and participate in surveys and do whatever they can, because the topics will be taken and then kind of pared down from the important buckets that they're put in.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm a huge fan of CCIU because I worked for them, so thank you.
That's great. We're looking forward to working with them.
Nope, turn that off. Fantastic. Okay, I think we have no online comments. That was our only in-person comment. Everybody at the table said a thing. And now we are back to Mr. Weinstein and our fabulous tech crew. No, that's the theater department. Whatever. You guys need to come up with a cool name. The tech trio. I like it. I'm stealing it. We're going with it. And you guys are going to tell us all about AI in our district.
Sure, thank you. And I will open this presentation and then turn it over to Megan Schaefer, who will have a brief part, and then the two people that put the heart of this presentation together, Laura Huddlemeyer and Kim Phillips. Jen Goldberg is also with us, that supports us in many ways. But this presentation is about AI and LMSD. And what we will work through is the introduction and purpose, which I will provide for you, AI policy development, and see how that crosses over with policy, and an AI roadmap and highlights, building AI literacy, learning in the age of AI, and then next steps. So when I say AI, if there's a couple hundred people in the room or watching online, I'm sure people evoke different thoughts in their head of what we mean when we say AI and K-12 public education, and it can go a lot of different ways. So this slide is meant to show that there's so many, this isn't fully inclusive, but a pretty large list of when people think about AI in education. If you say that to a teacher early on, it's how are we going to prevent cheating? Some teachers will look at this as an opportunity. We think of the vast ethical responsibility we have with this really powerful is tool the right word for this? But it's way stronger, that safe use when talking about children and using this. Family engagement, making sure we're keeping our families engaged in what we're thinking and talking about. And tonight, by large measure, that's what we're trying to do with you. Data privacy and security to protect that. Equity and access. Teaching and learning. We want to make sure that there's not cognitive offloading and students are still doing the critical thinking. Really important topic in the world of education. Continuous learning for our leaders. We've been engaged in this for a long time and still know a really small portion of all of what AI is, but we're committed to learning more and doing this well. college and career preparation. So as much as this topic may be scary for so many people, we also know that the world's asking for people to be prepared with it. So when you think of enter to learn, go forth to serve, that has to be part of what we're thinking about as we send learners out to serve. So I know that there's a variety of fear, excitement, and it runs the gamut of what people think of when we say, we're going to present to you on AI in education. I want you to know, and with this slide I hope represents to you, is we're thinking about it from multiple complexities, and it's vast. So I'll go over this briefly. ChatGPT was released on November 30th, 2022, for most of us seemingly out of nowhere. It wasn't the beginning of artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence, but it was the first one that went mainstream. GPT, so we don't take this for granted, stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. We're not fully prepared to understand the impact. It took ChatGPT 5 days to reach 1 million users. By comparison, it took Facebook 10 months. It is not always accurate. There will be a lot of debate about how schools should respond. This is not going away. This will only become more intelligent and resourceful. This slide here I present to you tonight is a slide I presented on January 5th, 2023 to one of our high school faculty, a little over a month after ChatGPT was released, and it remains true. Because we're continuously learning, some steps that we took as a district to involve the outside world, outside of our district. Ethan Malik is one of the big names in artificial intelligence in our country. He's the co-director of Wharton Generative AI Labs with his wife. They are Lower Merion parents. And we were fortunate enough to be able to, he's also the best-selling author of a co-intelligence living and working with AI, New York Times bestseller. In the June Leadership Day meetings, Ethan visited us and gave us a wealth of information. One of the there was so much to take away. One of the terms he mentioned is not only is it not going away, it will be more ubiquitous in our lives. And you can already see that from November 30th, 2022. Another name that we brought in our August meetings on August 14th was Sam Ormando. And Sam is really big in the K-12 space, also an author and a tech leader in nationally, and is in our area and came and visited us and gave fascinating prompts to make administrators. So while there's things we worry about and we want to prepare for, there's also things that it may help us with. And there's no shortage of work that we have to do. And he gave us a lot of information to do our jobs a little bit better, and it was really helpful. In a moment, you'll hear from our local experts, and I don't just say this because they're here. I feel so fortunate that they work with us. They're utilized so frequently by our K-12 teaching staff. Generally, you add a global pandemic in 2022 and what we had to do, which they led that work in. You add the onset of artificial intelligence and working with that and figuring that out, they've become really valuable to us. So I'm grateful that they're here. You're going to hear a lot from them tonight. Before that, though, if you were here in the spring and the end of the year, we were talking about AI policy. And I'd like to bring Megan Schaefer to the podium to talk a little bit about AI policy in Lower Merion.
I don't often get to use the podium to talk about policy because normally I'm sitting in that chair, but I'm happy to be here this evening. This is one of those really exciting topics to be involved with and teaming with the people in this room to work through. And the point of me presenting this portion tonight is to sort of make explicit for the group here and for our community that we're really intentional about how we make connections to the work. And what happens, for example, in the policy committee is connected to what's happening in our classrooms. And we report back to you and the community through oftentimes like CCOB, the way we're here tonight. So the work that we've done to sort of embrace taking the steps from that November 30th time point that Scott referenced to this evening is, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to close our doors and and Windows and say, nope, no AI here, it's not going to exist, let's go back to the chalkboard. That's not what we agreed to. In fact, what we wanted to share with the community through policy is that we're going to embrace it, but with guardrails. So leading with that sort of the ethics of use, with care, curiosity, and caution is sort of how we framed this policy work. And what we haven't done is take the next step in developing this specific administrative regulation. And I don't think we are an outlier in that. In fact, I think we're like other districts saying, let's allow for the space to play around with it safely in a K-12 environment and figure out how and we should memorialize the rules of engagement. And so the idea tonight is to share a little bit of how that work is going so that we can all reflect as a community of like, what does that mean for future rulemaking that we'll do through our administrative regulations. So I'm excited to be a part of this work. I think we have a really talented group that will be guiding us in thinking about its appropriate use in classrooms and as part of our work lives. So that, without further ado, I'll turn it over to our tech trio.
Here we are again. All right, so we're going to take you on an AI journey, and first we'll start with some highlights, and then we'll take a deeper dive. So the graphic that you see on the screen may be familiar to some of you that were with us in the spring when we first looked at the policy together. You can see our roadmap began in November of 2022, as Scott shared about ChatGPT being launched. And as you go through the roadmap, you can see there's many opportunities of training our teachers and students in AI literacy, as well as the policy that Megan shared. So as you go through this presentation, you'll see these highlighted reflected, and we're still continuing down the road, so we're building that foundational AI literacy with our students and staff.
Did you already hit forward? Okay, sorry. As you could see, there's been a lot of work that's happened since we all started scrambling in 2022 to figure out what's going on in education, and we are obviously not alone. And so when we think about where are we right now in terms of policy and professional development and preparing our students and teachers, we definitely are still in this foundational phase. So we have done a lot of hard work over the last 2.5 years to get to this point, and I'd say we are still in that foundational phase where we're still trying to make sure everyone is literate in terms of, AI is not always accurate, AI can be biased, just, really the basics, with the goal of eventually expanding and starting to consider how could it impact the teaching and learning process in safe and ethical ways. And so you can see these phases up here. I would say there's very few schools that would not classify themselves as foundational at this point, but we all have that goal to move towards potentially a time where that sustainable integration would take place, but that would likely be many years down the road.
All right, so let's talk about building our AI literacy. On the screen here, you're going to see a guideline that we used for our students, and this is the C AI Literacy Framework for Students. It came from AI for Education, which has become an invaluable resource for us as we've navigated this AI journey. And this has two parts to it. The first part is foundational understanding for students, helping them define AI, what Gen AI is, the role of training data, the capabilities and limits, and then being able to apply that C framework, which stands for safe, ethical, and effective use. So those ideas are making sure students are learning about their privacy, thinking about keeping the human decision-making in the upfront, making sure to be aware of bias, and also thinking critically about when intentional use is important and when also we need to make some judgment calls based on the outputs we received. One of the things that we really like about the C framework is the developmentally appropriate guidelines that it shares. So you can see on the left side of the screen, the primary focus for elementary is very different than the primary focus for high school students. And that's really been a guideline for us as we're moving forward this work, making sure that we're including that AI instruction, that it's not just tucked into a tech class, that it's really woven through and being thoughtful in its integration. Now, not only do we have guidelines for students, but ever since we did our first AI training for teachers, we've shared a framework for responsible AI use. This is our core tenets, and we reintroduce these each time we meet with our teachers and talk about AI use. We always share protect confidential information, make sure we're ensuring privacy and not sharing sensitive data, always being aware of bias and fact-checking. And thinking about AI content is just a starting point, thinking about using it as a draft, but always putting our spin on it and enhancing with our own big, beautiful brains. Okay, professional learning. We've done a lot of professional learning in our district, starting right in fall 2023. That's the picture you can see on the screen here, and a face that Scott mentioned earlier, that's Sam Romando leading that training for our humanities teachers to address those urgent needs. And as we've continued on in winter, we had experiences for all K-12 teachers about not only responsible use, but specific tools that could assist them in their workflow. We continued by offering different workshops and cohorts for teachers to help improve best practices. And we even started this school year with an AI literacy and policy session to introduce the policy to all teachers as we started the school year. Now, on the next slide, you'll just see a variety of the different resources that we've shared and offered to our teachers. And it's ranged from the K-12 environment, so I'll even add, like, Jen, I don't know if you want to mention some of the elementary options we've had.
So last spring, elementary teachers participated in what I called 10 with Jen, which is a quick, easy way to get 10 minutes of PD time, because as we've established, PD is not just the days where the kids are at home and the teachers are at school. So 10 with Jen is before school, it's 10 minutes, and I had 5 different topics throughout the spring, and teachers would come and they would spend 10 minutes. It's meant to be very practical. You'd learn one new thing, and then you would take it, be able to apply that, and then come back next week and learn one more new thing. And everybody got a bookmark that they could take with them that included the skill that we talked about. But they were all different AI skills that teachers would use to plan instruction, to just make them a better educator. And we looked at what tool you would use when and why, because there's so many tools out there. We wanted to make sure that they were using an education-specific tool and that they were using it effectively to meet the needs of their students. So one of the tools like we looked at specifically is a tool called Ludia, which focuses on the UDL framework and uses AI in conjunction with UDL. So we looked at why we might use a tool like that as opposed to just going to ChatGPT, which is sort of a Swiss Army knife and has everything, but a tool like Ludia might be more specific for a student with a barrier.
Okay, so in addition to these professional learning options, one of our favorite professional learning experiences we've offered is our AI teacher cohorts that we hosted last winter and spring. And this was totally voluntary. So we put out, invites to all of our secondary teachers if you wanted to join this cohort. We had over 50 teachers reply and participate. And it was phenomenal. It was 4 sessions where we focused on prompting, responsible classroom use, you can see up in our flyer, AI-resistant assessments, and AI literacy. So we try to focus on topics that our teachers are struggling with or trying to figure it out and navigate it. And so we wanted to make these really meaningful. And essentially it was just us all coming together. We would prepare a very short, some information, some research, some strategies. And then there was a gap of time where we would give teachers about 2 weeks to process it, to reflect on it, maybe put something into practice, and then come back together in those 2 weeks and share out. What did we learn? What did we discover? And so this is where Dr. Ethan Malik that Mr. Weinstein mentioned earlier, he says the best way to learn is to really get with your peers and experiment together as experts in your own field. And so we found this to be like an incredibly helpful learning opportunity. We even had an AI think tank for our school leaders in the spring, where they got to come together for a few sessions and do something similar. And so we are really excited to continue these cohorts this fall. And in addition to our teacher professional development, we've also done some outreach for our parents and families. One of the opportunities last fall was our AI in the Home session that we offered at American Education Week. That was in collaboration with Dr. Johnson and Mr. Warschauer, and that session was mainly to introduce our high school parents to some of the trends we're seeing with teen use of AI, how prevalent it is, what tools they're using. Many parents were, I think we were all shocked when we found out that students in surveys will answer, no, they've never used ChatGPT, but they are using the AI tool in Snapchat, and that is in fact ChatGPT. So like there's just even being aware of what you're using at a given time is new to a lot of people. We also addressed obviously the ethical considerations, and then we also modeled practical strategies. One example is we put a study guide into ChatGPT and generated a practice test, and parents could see how quickly it works, and it's great. But we also talked about, okay, so we have this practice test. How do we know if the answer key we asked it for is accurate? And so these are the questions that we're trying to encourage our students, our teachers, and our families to be asking themselves as they're engaging with these tools. And we also, you've probably received some sort of a tech newsletter at your child's grade level. The Spring into Technology was our latest from secondary, which has some information about Snapchat. Jen, did you want to speak to the elementary as well?
Sure. So the Tech It Out newsletter is for elementary families. They can be found on the district webpage on the parent section. And it's updated with information. There is a new section that was added just this fall specifically on AI. It has articles that anytime I come across an article that I read that I think is useful, I'm a parent myself. I have my own children who struggle with how to implement this. So anytime I see something that I think, oh, that's really important to know, I bet other parents need to know that too. So I put that out there, but I do have a specific section on AI, and it has resources that can help elementary parents understand what it is, how they can learn about it a little bit more, and then how they can work it into their family discussions.
All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is how we started educating our students about AI. And we already are doing digital citizenship lessons for our students, but we now integrated some AI topics into our digital citizenship curriculum. And one of the first lessons that we started with our students is just, what is AI? How is it trained? And then if you look at the screen, you can see we actually walked students through some scenarios to help them navigate what would be some ethical and non-ethical use cases of AI. We helped them look at how they can evaluate credible information online, not only just any information, but also AI, and also some popular topics that have come up, keeping students safe. So at the middle school level, our most recent one was about AI chatbots and who are behind the screens, as there are some concerning things that we've seen, and we wanted to really educate our students to make sure they're really aware and have those safety guidelines. Those lessons will still continue and grow this school year. And one thing that we found important, again, is to have those lessons that the whole school is participating in, as opposed to maybe just in a computer class. They're getting these pockets of information that the entire school community is getting educated on those important information.
At the elementary level, elementary students have been receiving digital citizenship lessons based on Common Sense Media for the last probably 6 years now. There isn't a specific lesson on AI. The students get between 3 to 5 lessons on just general digital citizenship skills, media, evaluation, things like that. But this year, the librarians and I are meeting and working together, and we will create a specific AI lesson that will just add to our arsenal of lessons that we already teach. So it's not going to replace, but it's going to be an additional lesson specific to grade levels K to 4. So we'll obviously tailor it for the needs of the students, but just sort of an overview so that they know what it is, they've heard the term, and they can see where it might impact their lives.
All right, we're going to conclude with focusing on learning in the age of AI, or in other words, how is this impacting our students and the learning process? And so some academic considerations that we've had to take over the past couple of years began with a humanities syllabus statement. And that was the earliest thing I think we did in response to AI coming on the scene in 2022. There was an urgent need. Our humanities courses were largely impacted because we all know they're heavy in writing, and so that syllabus statement has come full circle to be like everyone's syllabus statement now because we know that AI impacts us all. So that's where it started to impact the learning process. And one of the most urgent needs, like Kim mentioned earlier, is the academic integrity concerns that our teachers had, that students are trying to navigate as well. So what we did in response to that was create a one-pager resource of, we called it Cheating in the Age of AI, but it's really meant to support everyone. And so we start off like an abbreviated version of this, because we also offered pop-up PDs, is that AI checkers are not accurate. We all know this. The research shows that they're not accurate. We do have Turnitin AI checking. And so when we're asking teachers or we're training teachers on using it, we are making sure that they understand that this is simply a number you can look at. It's a percent. It is a red flag, but it shouldn't be your deciding factor in how you're going to grade or assess that work. And that it's a great starting point for a conversation with the student. So we know, we've seen the articles, the stories about children being falsely accused of using AI, and we know that eroding teacher trust is very impactful in student learning. So we really want to prepare our teachers to navigate this with them in like a safe and thoughtful, respectful way. We also, in that one pager, have a lot of strategies to help teachers rethink some of the strategies and practices we've been doing for a long time. Maybe it's time to look at some of the assignments we've been giving, and is it time to maybe revise them or upgrade them? And then also strategies, moving beyond that to integrate AI in opportunities and ways when it's appropriate. And one of the things that we've kind of looked a lot at, or we keep coming back to, is this AI assessment scale. And it was developed by Leon Furs, and he is a researcher in this field, and he has developed a scale that helps teachers to basically look at what they're doing and see, where could I implement AI without letting it overtake the learning process. And so that's the usage of the scale. And we also have developed a template of a disclosure statement that we've shared with our cohort, and we are sharing it more widely this year with all of our teachers. And this kind of trickled down from higher ed. We've seen a lot of it in colleges where professors are asking students to disclose if they've used AI for an assignment. If so, which one did you use? How did you use it? Maybe even sharing a thread to the conversation you had with the chatbot. And then some reflection questions. How did it impact, your understanding of this topic? Was it accurate? Was it helpful, and why? So those are some of the things that are included in a disclosure statement. And these are just some of the artifacts that I just mentioned. You can see our one pager on the right-hand side. That was for our pop-up on cheating in the age of AI. There's also a stoplight tool that I know Sam Ormando published on once, and some classrooms are adopting this as a way to help students navigate assignment by assignment. Am I allowed to use AI on this assignment versus this one? And so we've just tried to provide teachers at this point resources to help them navigate this with their students, because we know it's a really tough job to do right now.
So As we already discussed, we have our digital citizenship lessons to help increase that student AI literacy, but I just wanted to share another thing that we've done to really honor student voice and choice in this work. One of my favorite opportunities last year, you can see on the left side of the screen, this is a 6th grade classroom at Black Rock Middle School, and we had a special visitor. Her name's Emily Wang. She's a Lower Merion High School student. She reached out and offered to teach a lesson about AI to students, so we collaborated together. We were able to arrange to come. The students were so engaged learning from a student that it's in high school, the ways that Emily is navigating using AI in high school, ways that she finds it helpful, and it was a really great opportunity. I really hope that I can bring her back since she's still in district this year. Another way we incorporated student voice as well is when we had that policy draft, our high school computer science students were actually able to review that policy draft and also provide their feedback. So we really tried to get like that holistic approach.
So we've done a lot we've really immersed ourselves in professional learning and building capacity in teachers, and we've done a lot of work already in building just the foundations for students. So this year we feel our focus is on really focusing on strengthening learning, our core learning skills. And what I mean by that is, firstly, we've seen cognitive offloading in a lot of, published research at this point. And so one of the questions we're wrestling with is how do we preserve the learning process? How are we going to make sure that students are able to continue learning and show their learning in authentic ways? That comes down to everything we do. So teachers are asking themselves, if you're assigning a homework assignment tonight, you can probably assume that most of your students have access or may try to use AI to do that. So what you're asking them to do, is it still worth asking? Should we be asking something different? These are just some of the questions that people were starting to wrestle with. Aligned with that is assessments. I just met with a business teacher today at the high school level who is looking at their midterm already and thinking through, hey, I know this, could be better, and how can we redesign this to make this learning experience more authentic for my students? And so these teachers are working so hard. They're really doing amazing work at really thinking, how do we preserve learning and beyond that, enhance it? And so for critical thinking skills, if and when we're asking students to potentially engage with AI, we're asking teachers to really be thinking about how are you going to ask and prepare your students to think critically about the outputs of AI. When you get an output, are you asking yourself the right questions? Is this accurate? Am I an expert on the content well enough to know if it's accurate or not? So these are some of the things other things that we're thinking about. And finally, the content. AI varies from content area to content area. There's been a lot of initial research saying it's not as great at math as some other subjects. It's getting better at math, and it's getting better at everything all the time. So just trying to navigate that with our teachers from content area, because it will look different in each classroom, how AI could be utilized and support instruction or learning. And so to carry out some of these focus areas, we continue to build foundational AI this year with our teachers and students and administrators. We will continue to partner with our neighboring school districts. Every time we get together with other districts, AI is always a hot topic. What are you doing right now? How are you doing it? And so we get a lot out of our visits at the MCAU, and we also hope to expand our pilots. We were fortunate enough to take a really great course this summer called Adapting Instruction and Assessment. So we're very excited to implement some of what we've learned there into our professional learning, and hopefully with our next cohort, maybe have some sort of a showcase where we could actually document some of the changes that are taking place for our teachers and our students.
Thank you so much. That was so in-depth, and I can feel the gears in my brain going. Okay, we started, that's, okay. How about we get our quiet folks here? Do Mel or Todd, do either of you have any comments you'd like to put in? Okay, go for it. Why don't you start us off, Melanie?
Thank you. I appreciate seeing now both. Oh, thank you. I'm on the policy committee, so I appreciate the presentation from spring and now. I'm putting some things together and going to where you're talking about the training to look further into, like, is this credible? Like we've had to do for the internet now, which has come a whole lot harder with AI. And what I've found is a little bit harder with AI too, is it will take two sources, read them together, and then infer something about those sources. So I would always say a reminder to the students and the teachers, you can always ask it to cite its sources. But the other thing I've read the AR already, and I would love to see more of what on slide 23, the academic considerations. I think that would be a lot of things to put some guardrails in so we don't have, it's a reminder to the teachers and the students what is considered and what won't be considered as far as, like you're saying, false accusations. And I wanted to, and I'm familiar with Lydia. Yeah. Now, is this like a filter over along one of the large language models, or is it something? And do we pay for that extra, or is this is all free? And
Ludia is a free tool, and it is designed to initially look at the barriers. So you would describe a struggling student. One of the things I talk to my teachers about, of course, is making sure not to describe the student with, PII, which is personally identifiable information, but describing the needs of a student. And Ludia will remove the barriers, so it will identify what might be challenging for that student and then give you suggestions of activities, and you can tease it out. I want ideas that involve paper and pencil. I want ideas that involve a computer. I want ideas for a whole class. And Ludia is really what I call a thought partner for discussing UDL issues.
okay.
And it's a layer over PO.
Yes, it's part of PO. Thank you. I didn't.
Okay.
I guess I could have mentioned that.
Okay, so we're not, in the classrooms and things, and the use of the students, is there going to be some limitations made of what models that the students are allowed to use, or some filters that are on?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, the only tool that we have approved for student use is School AI. And School AI, we like to think of it as like a moderated or like a walled garden for students, where a teacher can set up a space. Let's say a teacher is teaching a science lesson and they want the students to interact. They can set up a very specific space, and the students can chat. The teacher can actually see the chat as it goes and help guide the students in the use of it. And it can be just used specifically, maybe like to brainstorm for a project, etc. But they don't have, carte blanche access, and we use that at our secondary schools.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. I think that's all my questions. I'll let everybody else ask questions too. Thanks.
Kim? No? Todd? Go for it.
Yeah, I could go for a long time, but I'm not really on this committee. But I think it's some, I'm sure you know this, right? But we don't want to, what do you call it? Cognitively offload the ability to think and come up with your own creative, original idea, which often requires you to not have immediate access to information. Like everybody, I want to use, and you look it up, and you can get a tremendous amount that way. But that'll stifle your ability to come up with a creative idea of your own, right? And so I really like this idea of an AI-resistant exercise, and I'd like to hear, I think all of us would probably like to hear more about that as the year goes forward, how this is built into the curriculum. How do you even do that? Other than just, my brother's an English teacher, so he gives them assignments in class. You have to write this with a piece of paper and a pencil in an hour. And if there's a big disconnect between what that student produces in an hour in the class and what they produce, on their monthly paper, so that's the red flag. But this idea that, you set up these intellectual walls, boundaries, and within it, there's a lot of stress and dissonance and unsettling lack of knowledge, and it's in those environments you come up with the creative ideas. So that, I think, is the challenge going forward, is to build those aspects into the curriculum. But I'm not the curriculum aspect, that's you guys. Thank you.
I don't know if you had a question, you didn't have a question there, but I can share with you.
talk.
I can share with you a little bit about like designing AI-resistant assessments, and I don't know if you're going to love or like it, but there's a prompt that you can actually use to help brainstorm AI-resistant assignments. But in all seriousness, I mean, our teachers in their PLCs, this is what they spend a lot of their time talking about, is looking at assessments that maybe aren't standing the test of time, and like essays and writing. How do we still help students learn to write without having the temptation to use AI? And so those are the exact things that our teachers are wrestling with. And I don't know if there's like a one-size-fits-all solution. I don't think there ever will be, but I think our teachers, these are the exact things, like your thoughts are resonating a lot with what we hear from our teachers.
Just got a little bit concerned when one of you said, AI is like just how you generate the draft and then you can edit. Like, I don't really want to get that message out there, right? Like,
So I wanted to give you one more thought about the AI-resistant assessments. Something else that you can look at as like a mindset shift. Instead of thinking of like that end product, we're really trying to encourage like the process of like the learning. So instead of students really trying to generate, this is my final essay, thinking about as they're going through giving markers of let's write a little bit of this and check in and see how they're doing. And just how you shared too in class, like teachers being able to have that initial draft and knowing how the students are rating. Also what we've seen is after students have written something or developed a piece, them being able to make a video to share their reflections about it, make a podcast to talk about the work that they did instead of just writing an essay, giving them some really creative ways to express their learning as opposed to just you have to take this test or you have to give this essay in, thinking about learning as like that AI journey, as we just said, like learning as a journey as opposed to just turning in one final piece.
Okay, Kim, do you have 6 questions? Wait, if you have 6 questions, we're gonna go around the table. Do you have?
No, it's not going to be 6 questions,
okay.
but I did want to say that the genie is out of the bag, and so your brother who's doing the blue books, it sounds like I don't know that that's really happening more broadly, and I think it would be great if we could do like more oral tests. Like they do in other countries, and they test your knowledge that way. And I do like the creative pieces that you mentioned, but there are currently over 1,000 AI platforms out there. So I don't know how we're going to ever pull that back. I don't think that we are. And I see AI as the new calculator. So if it's cheating, then they shouldn't use the calculator either, because then that would be cheating. I wanted to know the spelling of the Ludia, because I wanted to look that up.
Ludia. It's
Oh, it's like
actually
it's
an
phonetically.
acronym.
Okay.
It's actually, it's not an acronym, it's a mix-up of UDL and AI mixed together.
Okay.
That's how they came up with the word Ludia.
Okay. So yeah, I think that the students need this deep exposure. I mean, you're not going to be able to have an employment opportunity if you do not really know how to manipulate these new platforms that are out there. So I'm happy you're going in this direction. And thank you for your lovely presentation.
Perfect. Okay, Abby? Sure. Go for it.
Thank you so much. I'm also on the policy committee, so it's nice to see you again. I have a bunch of questions, and one suggestion for AI-resistant assessment. I can't even get onto the LMSD website right now. That's resistant. So you could always just give them the tool and then not let it work. I'm being facetious. Okay, so one question that I have is when you were discussing the collaborative learning communities, is that something that will be carried over to the PLCs as well in like a sort of like an organized fashion, or is it something that happens organically?
So the one that we offered last winter, spring was voluntary. So it was across content areas. We do meet with PLCs when they reach out to us and need things, and AI has definitely been a topic that we've visited with. So it's not structured the same where we have like a set menu of like topics we'll cover, but we do address needs as they arise. And a lot of it is AI resistant assessments. That's the number one topic, yeah.
Because I was wondering, it seems to some degree right now in the kind of the current, I don't know, the current state is that it's sort of self-selecting, like people who are comfortable looking into it and some people who are maybe not. So I've been trying to read up on it, and it's like, it's a lot. 1,000 platforms, maybe there's more, like it's a lot. So I was wondering how to kind of, standardize, for lack of a better word, the knowledge that people are getting, and then, being able to distribute that across staff. So just wanted to put that in the atmosphere. Another question is, FERPA compliance. So I apologize, but I was Googling this as you were talking just to look it up. So for example, like Ludia and School AI, I couldn't tell whether or not they were FERPA compliant. I don't know if they are SOC2 compliant, those kinds of things. I'm just curious if you can speak to that.
We have a vetting process for any tools that we have our students or our teachers use. So to have School AI approved for student use, our solicitors had to go over all of the policies and approve the use. And those are also like on the site. So anything that we use, we have to go through an extensive process to make sure it's okay for us to use.
Okay, and does that, there's something coming down the FTC, I'm sure people have read about it, having to do with consent 13 and under. Is that something?
Started already.
I know, but that's all kind of like folded into what we're doing, I'm assuming? I just want to ensure that that's happening. Okay.
I think that, is covered by the school district already far before that, and now it's covered by all other organizations.
Great.
That was the flip over of it.
Great.
Right, Megan?
Okay, I just wanted to ask the question to make sure, because it's been in the news, and I also just want to echo again what some of my colleagues have said about friction. Intellectual friction is where so much of the creativity happens, and while these tools are really incredible and really useful, not relying on them too heavily and bringing low tech to the forefront, because pens and paper, pencils and paper, different writing utensils and different surfaces, vertical writing, all of that stuff is really helpful for generating ideas and viewpoint diversity, honestly, when you think about something. So, but I really want to say thank you to you. I really appreciate your presentation, so thank you.
Dr. Zotner?
Sure, I have a few. I'll try to organize them together. Abby, I appreciate the way you ended that, because I want to be really mindful that true creativity and true aha moments come after deep dives in content. So we're acting like you can be in a room by yourself and come up with, Newton's third law of physics. You can't. You actually have to engage in the content first, and in some ways AI can help you find said content if used appropriately. So struggling past when you're really engaging past content is really important, always primary sources. So here are my three questions. I feel like I'm totally off on a different side of this, but it was a little bit around what you talked about, how are we teaching? And I'm less worried about what AI you're using in school. It's the AI the kids are using out of school, which is everywhere. I mean, absolutely everything, from your thermostat to I can't write an email without Copilot interrupting me and judging my grammar, which is probably a good thing, but really annoying. But AI bias, and for our kids and our parents to understand how not just AI bias, but the prompt bias, and how that perpetuates bias against women, bias against people. How are we teaching that? And I'm sorry if I'm putting too much pressure on you, but when I think of that ethics side, I think of the AI biased, really concerned about. So I'll group them together, and then you can kind of dive in a big picture, because I don't need you don't have to go through every detail. The AI and mental health is extremely concerning. I know that case came out a year ago, but it's, pulling back up about the, what is it called? It's not Mirage.
Companionship?
No, yeah, that too is creepy. Hallucinations too, a hallucination about the content, but also the coaching in the wrong direction children can get from lots of different AI, and adults as well. And then finally, and I group this all together in ethics in my brain, is the environmental impact of AI and that understanding of our kids to make those choices. It is not a tool that isn't extremely dangerous for the environment. So how are you guys looking at ethics as a whole? Because I know that was a whole bunch and you don't have to go into it at 8:30 at night.
So in the presentation, we referenced like digital literacy, digital citizenship lessons, and some of the specific lessons that we've offered to date have mainly, for AI, have mainly focused on bias and safe use, and just really educating kids on what AI is. And so, for example, one of the lessons was about AI bias, and we used Google's Quick Draw. And students practice this. You don't have to log in, so you could like pull this up if you want. It's kind of fun to play. It's like a drawing game, a Pictionary game, and you're drawing things, and the AI is trying to guess what it is. But on the back end, it shows you all of these images that it's basing its guesses on. And so if you say draw a cookie, and you're drawing chocolate chip cookies all the time, it's not going to ever recognize a fortune cookie as a chocolate chip cookie. And so that's like where the bias is baked in, is how you're training these models. And making that tangible or accessible for children is really hard. And so that's one example of like a lesson that we've tried to make it engaging for kids, but also understanding this is why. When people say AI is biased, this is why. Like, we can tell you it's biased all we want, but until you actually see why it is, that's where I think it's really hard to help them understand that. But that's like a large majority of our lessons that we do are based on the ethics and safe use. Do you want to add to the ethics?
Yeah, I can just hop in. I knew the other question you were asking about, like some of the scary sides of AI. And we did a lesson specifically about who is behind the screen, because we saw a lot of research about students forming inappropriate relationships with chatbots and things that can happen. So that was a lesson that we really talked about. What it's used for, what it's not, and really giving some guardrails of keeping them safe that we thought was really important to include. We also have blocked sites that we know that we find are not appropriate for students. So like there's a site that's called Companion AI, and after we read about some of the parts of that, we immediately blocked it. So there's ones when we hear that could be trouble for our students, we're going to make sure that we keep them safe, and also educating them so when they're at home they can keep themselves safe as well.
Because and it's not just companion AI, it's the relationship and the impressive skill at AI sounding like a person and coaching you is, in some ways, that's what Khan Academy loves about, how they can coach math. And that's wonderful. And that's great with IXL and those things. It's also can be extremely dangerous to what it coaches you into. So not to freak out every parent in the room, but this is what I stay up at night thinking about, is like, how can we make sure that it's not just keeping kids safe, it's empowering children to understand the dangers behind it so they can then be in charge of their own lives at different ages appropriately. Thank you.
So I'll just add one thing with the way the conversation has gone, and it's all appropriate. When Ethan Mala came in over the summer, maybe one of the top 5 experts in the world, and he categorized himself not an expert, because in the time he was there, the 2 hours he was there, hour and a half, things changed so much. So this is constant work, and again, I'll thank you for the diligent work that you do, finding things that are inappropriate or good tools that we can use. So, but it's work that'll be constant. And Scott had a quote in one of his PowerPoints, AI won't replace you, but someone who knows how to use it well will. So, Kimberly, what you were saying before is appropriate. I think we need to teach the kids how to use it and embrace it, because it will be the future of what we do. Once the creative minds are set, right? Dr. Ricky, I understand what you were saying as well. But I think it's our jobs to understand, like if we were given a task as an adult, we would use everything at our disposal to do it. Including a calculator, including AI, including the internet, including everything. Knowing what was true, right, relevant, that's on us as well. But we need to be able to teach the kids to use everything at their disposal once they achieve that certain age and creativity and understanding of take this information and be creative with it, right? And our teachers are tasked with a tough task of learning how to do that and making them use the tools, but also use their minds.
Sarah? Thanks. Add to the questions that everyone else has. Just more of a practical question. When and how are the digital literacy lessons taking place? Are the three of you the only ones teaching them? Are content level teachers teaching them? Just kind of like, how is it working at the different levels?
At the middle school level, like, we develop the lessons, and so at the middle school level, they're pushed out and we have whole school lesson schedules, and they're actually pushed out by like their homeroom teacher. And oftentimes, another teacher that's not teaching at that time will come and support. So they actually have like 2 teachers in the room. And we think it's really impactful to have their actual teachers teach the lesson than me just coming in as an outsider, talking to them, as they can actually incorporate this as part of their daily practice as well.
At the elementary level, they'll be taught through the librarian. So they'll be developed by the librarians in conjunction with me, and I'll consult with my colleagues as well, and then the librarians will deliver them to all the students.
And at the high school level, it's similar to middle, where we have lessons and advisories for students.
Go.
As Dr. Ranelli was talking, and I was thinking about integrity, and I guess it's maybe 15 or 16 years ago that I read in the Chronicles of Higher Education where American college students were paying people to write their papers. That has never ended. In fact, there's a new documentary, and I recommend everyone go and see this documentary or find a way to download it, called The Shadow Scholars. Okay, and the first book that was out about this subject is called The Shadow Scholar, and that young man was living in Rittenhouse Square writing papers for American students all over the country. So it's not a new thing, but I think that we need to know that exists at the collegiate level, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Okay, I'm going to keep it as quick as I possibly can. I know we have online chat, but I'm sure we'll have in-person comment. I just want to piggyback. The thing with AI that keeps me, Shayna, not me, the board member, up at night is the environmental impact and just the sheer amount of water and power that we use for these things. And so however we can hammer that home to anyone, we are also encouraging to use that, because I would like our planet to exist. Crashing on, Megan, if you could talk a little bit, since I am not on your lovely policy committee, about what the sort of process is and what the consequences are for use of AI for students on assignments where they have been instructed not to use those resources.
The policy isn't that specific about, I think, the scenario you proposed, which is if a teacher has said you're not to use AI on this assignment, it would follow the normal protocol for if a student cheated on a test, like what happened, what's the impact of that, and that would follow the classroom guidelines, and then from there, whatever at the building level, the administration's involvement is with that. So the policy at this point isn't that granular, but the code of conduct still applies for all, violations of classroom rules.
Great, thank you. I will make excuses for Dr. Ranelli. He wasn't feeling well, so he has gone home. If we have any in-person comment, if you'd want to come on up to the podium, when you get to the front, say your full name and what town you live in. You can just make a nice little line.
Yeah, please sign in.
I didn't realize there was a sign-in sheet over there. We don't usually do sign-ins on CCOB, do we? Oh, Denise isn't here, so we're making our usual secretary is not here, so we're making a record for her. So just go ahead, say your full name and what town you reside in the district.
James Houseman from Wynwood, and you guys are tasked with the responsibility of educating our children to become future productive members of society. However, the future is moving so fast, as we've discussed tonight, fastest in human history. The curriculum being taught in our schools is based off a 1950s working class structure, which is obsolete for the future that's already here. As of today, artificial intelligence is capable of writing computer code without human intervention, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no sick days or breaks. That's an exponential growth of a magnitude that humans cannot comprehend. It's expected within 5 years that AI agents and humanoid robots will replace many of the white-collar and blue-collar jobs. Our children are going to graduate into a world where many of them aren't needed. Today, our children are isolated, holed up in their rooms with electronics, numbing their brains, dulling their desires, and making them anxious, depressed, impatient, and unable to focus. These kids don't need a computer or internet access. They need human connection. My son and I are constantly battling over screen time limits. So for God's sake, don't give them another Chromebook or laptop. Instead of educating them for a system that no longer exists and teaching them skills that can be Googled in an instant, let's prepare them for life ahead. Teach our children how to look at their classmates in the eyes and make connections, build friendships, how to establish common ground with others that they have with dissenting views. Teach them what they're feeling inside and how to express themselves. Teach their friends how to listen openly and supportively. Teach them techniques to manage their anxiety and negative thoughts, how to be confident in themselves. Teach them the value of community, civil service, ethics, how to keep our fragile democracy alive. Teach them financial literacy, the value of money, saving for the future, putting off instant gratification for financial future. Plant a garden, raise chickens, build a shed. Soon, we are all going to need each other. We will need to rely on each other for support, for a sense of value, community, and connection. When AI has taken over our jobs and we all are going to be searching for life's purpose and value, we will only find this in each other. Knowing that St. Paul is the capital of Minnesota will be completely valueless. If you want to give my son something, give him a shovel. Let him dig a hole. Let him sweat, complain, be frustrated, tired. Let his hands get blistered and calloused. Then and only then will he have a sense of accomplishment through hard work. The structures are changing at hypersonic speed. I challenge you, Lower Merion, to be bold and courageous. Be the first district to step outside the box of the 1950s thinking and truly educate our children for the future that's already here. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Who do we have next on our list?
I have Jen Rivera. Was that?
No, Jen
that was
was
okay.
before.
Okay,
That was
I didn't know
before?
it was in the order. I just want to make sure. Talia Nissim.
Hi, Talia Nassim Ardmore. I just have a couple of quick questions. I would really love to see a plan on how we're going to ensure critical thinking and all of these other things that we've been discussing tonight. I know that we want to keep those things, and that's great to want them, but what is the plan? Like, how are we breaking this down? How are we going to make it happen? I am a little bit worried about the policy and the guardrails and how they're not really being, for me as a parent, I would really like them structured and harder guardrails, stronger guardrails, and then lessen them over time when we figure out what's going on with AI, instead of letting it play out in the district and then realizing that we made a bunch of mistakes. I'd rather be able to pull the guardrails back than have to put them up after something has already happened. And I also wanted to say that I really liked the cohorts. That sounds really great. My concern is why voluntarily? Why not make that something mandatory? You know, this is a way to ensure that all of our schools, which we talked about earlier in the meeting, are getting all of the knowledge, all similar learning, and all of the same resources throughout the district and not in just random places and pockets. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more in-person comments? No? Oh. No? Okay. Then if you would go ahead, Ms. Buckman, and read our online chat comments.
Sure. Juanita Kerber from Ardmore. I appreciate the presentation and the thorough efforts to take so much into account. I'm unclear how many classes will be dedicated to learning the digital citizenship curriculum. I too am concerned about teaching students to use AI as a safe tool, plus have original thought. It should also be mentioned that Jeffrey Hinton, considered as the godfather of AI, shares his concerns about AI. Kids should understand the types of AI jobs that will be needed.
Thank you very much. I believe that is everything we have on our agenda. I want to thank everybody who came and presented to us tonight, and everybody in the community who shared their feedback, for all of my colleagues for coming out tonight. And our next meeting of the Curriculum Committee of the Board will be October 13th. Same bat time, same bat channel, 7 o'clock in this room. And I hope you all have a really fantastic week.